Here's a question that I want the audience to think about, especially based on what Bear said. If you don't know what epistemology is, don't worry about it. I'll explain it momentarily. But if you do know, I want you to answer this question. How do we juxtapose, or how do we square away what we've just seen and read, the whole presentation so far? How do we square that away with what we call epistemology, or your worldview, your paradigm? How do you know that what you know is true about what you believe? Based on, if you are a Protestant, or you're just in any other belief, but if you don't believe in this, we're showing that the early church practiced these things, and the traditions we've established are valid ways to look at, interpret, analyze, and fill in the gaps where scripture is silent, and it aids in the structure of the church. So we can't throw tradition out, because it helps us tremendously, as I gave the first two examples with the baptismal formula and with the longer ending of Mark. How do we, if you don't believe in this, how do you square this away with your belief of not believing it when all of the earliest Christians did? So this goes into what we call the problem of justification. Okay. And I'm going to read a section here. It's a little long, but I want you guys to lock in for a second and just listen to me for a second, please. Okay. Just listen to what I'm saying. There's this book right here. It's called Epistemology Becoming Intellectually Virtuous. Again, guys, I actually have this book. Like, I have it. It's a very good book. I would advise everybody to read it if you get a chance. You all, as Christians, you need to understand epistemology. Now, Dr. W.J. Wood, a philosophy professor, many colleges, he writes this in his book. I believe it's on page 105 and 106 on the chapter of justification. Chances are you don't believe that our personal destiny is determined by the stars. You probably also think that some people who accept these claims ought not to accept them, that they're doing something that is, if not wrong, at least unfortunate by ways of their mind. Does that sound familiar? What Peace just said? It sounds wrong for you to think about doing these things, and it sounds icky, like I've never heard this before. That by believing these things, or by engaging in the intellectual practices that lead to these beliefs, people fail to orient themselves as well as they might towards the truth. As we noted in chapter 1, this is much further than chapter 1, so you should read it. As we noted in chapter 1, the rationality of our beliefs, together with the cluster of questions which this gives rise, falls under the topic of epistemic justification. Merely having a true belief is not enough. Let me repeat that one more time. Merely having a true belief is not enough. Wait, that sounds crazy. What?
Say it louder for the people in the back.
Merely having a true belief is not enough. What do we mean by that? I'm gonna take a quick pause. You ever talk to an atheist, and an atheist says, unaliving children, raping women is wrong? You agree with that, don't you? Of course I agree with that. Okay, yeah, so you don't need that God thing. Really? Well, for me, I don't need God to be moral. I only need God to justify my morality. For your position, it's just a matter of your opinion that raping is wrong. Because if your friend decides to do it, if there is no God, is it really wrong? Or is it just your opinion? So merely having a true belief is not enough. We need something deeper. If we continue reading, suppose my horoscope for today tells me I will one day be wealthy. Suppose further that it's actually true. It's unbeknownst to me. Did I know that what my horoscope said was true? Obviously not. What I lacked was some justification for thinking that what my horoscope said was true. Justification, then, is generally thought to be indispensable to having knowledge. Now, when we're talking about this particular situation, and we're asking, that's why I titled this video, Is Intercession of the Saints a Christian Doctrine? Because for our Protestant friends, most of the time, you have a wrong epistemology where this is concerned. You are assuming there is an assertion that belief starts with the Bible. And if it's not in the Bible, it can't be true. It can't be a true doctrine of the church when the earliest Christians didn't even have a Bible. How did they practice their faith? That's why I'm doing the presentation in the order that I'm doing it, to show you that the early church, they practiced through tradition, and the tradition helped to form and help to establish what the Bible is. Okay. So if you're starting from a wrong premise, if your epistemic position is that it must be in the Bible in order for it to be a true belief, you've already lost. There's no way I can argue with that position if it's something that even the church never held. You have a belief that is foreign. So you need to have the correct epistemology to justify why it's wrong. And if the earliest Christians and the structure of the church practice this, and then people come later and say we don't need to practice this anymore, the ground underneath you now as a Christian has crumbled. You have nothing to stand on for your reasoning of rejecting it. And I mean this with as much love as possible. But this is why epistemology is so important. And if you guys have been rocking with us for a while, you see how we use this all the time against the Muslims in the Islamic dilemma, and they can't answer. I'm just going to move on really quickly. I want to try to get through this. So what is epistemology? Epistemology is basically just the reasoning or the structure and the certitude of how you know what you know. And a question, now that we've gone through all of this, is intercession of the saints grounded as a Christian doctrine? Based on what we have learned about epistemology, the early church, the traditions, the archaeology, you'd have to say yes. There's no way you can say no. It just doesn't make sense. If you say no, the ground underneath you has collapsed and you're standing on air. So let's kind of get into some of these objections. I've titled this section Objections and Explanations. What exactly is intercession of the saints? Because now